A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this, I have to say, rather dismal Wednesday afternoon here in the UK. It is most definitely not spring-like today at all, but it has been, so we're confident that it will come back. So lovely to see you, and we're making a little diversion into the city this afternoon. Um, we've had quite a few requests to have a chat about London. So happy to share some of our favourites. And what I'd be really grateful for is your thoughts and feedback about what we've included, because obviously London is huge, and there are so many different things that we can do.
One of those like cheap bags, like you get
So
clothes in.
what I would ask you to do is, as we're going through, if there is a particular area that you would really like us to go into more detail about, whether it's the themed itineraries or the historical sites, whatever it may be, please let us know, and then we'll create another session. We have already planned to do a session about food and drink in London, because I think if we'd included all of our favourites and all of our ideas, we'd be here till probably about 8 o'clock tonight, which is 3 hours away. So we're not going to do that. But please just share your thoughts and feedback. They would be very gratefully received. So here we go. The beautiful Tower Bridge. Isn't that quite spectacular? It made me quite nostalgic, actually, for wanting to go back into London. It feels like, well, I can't even remember. I don't know when the last time was that I actually was in London. So I can't wait. It's going to be really glorious to get back there. And as always, we have some glorious partners. And I've had a couple of conversations recently, actually, about how we work in London, and how much we do there. Now, originally, Humphreys from the start was very much a countryside based organization, but so many of our clients say, oh, we'd like to do 3 nights in London and 4 in the countryside, or vice versa, and whatever it may be. So I spent a lot of time looking for a partner to work with in London, and somebody who delivers the same kind of service and has the same focus on attention to detail as we do. And I am very fussy and I am very demanding, but then I'm very proud of the service that we provide to our clients. And I couldn't find anyone that really fit the bill. So we have, over time, built up our own relationships with guides, with hosts, with specialists, and so on. So all of these are our own relationships, and as you know, we're pretty good at doing it out in the countryside, and we're now pretty good at doing it in London as well. So it's great to share it with you. So, a few little facts, just in case. I should have tested you first, actually, I think. But I mean, there is a glorious plethora of things to do in London, and all of the fabulous buildings, our wonderful tube, and it is the multiculturalism of the city that makes it so incredibly appealing. And I'm sure Big Ben is not the name of the tower at the Palace of Westminster. It is the name of the bell. And I do believe they've taken all the scaffolding down, because it was surrounded by scaffolding for far too long. And apparently, myth has it, if the ravens leave the Tower of London, then the monarchy will fall. which seems a little bit inappropriate to talk about after the all the headlines of this week, but we will move on from that. But it's a fabulous capital city. It's just wonderful. So just sharing a few of our favorite districts with you, and we want to give you a sort of feel for away from maybe all of the really obvious areas. I mean, South Ken and Knightsbridge are just lovely, and even just wandering around some of the residential areas is beautiful, because they really do know how to build and look after homes in that area. As you know, Knightsbridge, obviously home to Harrods and Harvey Nichols, and all sorts of absolutely glorious shops. We also have our favourite milliner in Beauchamp Place, just around the corner from Harrods. So if you have some clients who fancy having a bit of a hat made for them, or even just a bit of a trying on session and finding out about the wonderfully traditional art that is millinery, then they'll be hosted incredibly well. And also home to some of our fabulous museums and so on. The Natural History Museum must be up there as one of the best, particularly with families, because they have so much that is interactive. You could keep kids entertained all day. And actually, that reminds me, that was the last time I went to London. We went to see the photographic competition, the worldwide photographic competition finalists, and they're all sort of nature and wildlife, and it was absolutely spectacular. But that was back in October, so that was in the Natural History Museum. And then in Chelsea has a wonderful character, very, very different to South Ken and Knightsbridge, because I think there's a lot more history there. And it attracted the likes of Oscar Wilde, and Jane Austen lived there. Oscar Wilde was arrested in Chelsea, actually, in what is now the Belmond Cadogan Hotel. He was arrested in one of the rooms in that very building, which is fantastic. So lots of great little squares and tucked away areas of Chelsea. And then obviously you have the main sort of Sloane Square, and I mean, if you want a good shopping day, head down the King's Road. I would challenge anybody to manage to walk the length of the King's Road in one day, because you'll be calling into all the shops on the way down. But it's not necessarily, they're not the most obvious of places to go, but certainly well worth visiting. Now, Natural History Museum we've talked about. The Royal Albert Hall is just amazing. And if you've got clients staying in London who haven't been before, then please let us know, because we can arrange the most amazing private tour, really go behind the scenes. Depending on the performance that is going on at the time, we can also arrange introductions to the cast or the performers, whoever it is. And we also have access to the very best seats and the very best boxes as well. So if there is something on, I mean, we will always let you know what's on at the Albert Hall when your clients are coming. And if something appeals, then you can guarantee the best seats in the house. It's wonderful. I do love the Albert Hall. So continuing over a little bit, Whitehall and Westminster are again, it's a very different feel. It's a district all on its own. Obviously, home of all of the government buildings, and Palace of Westminster and so on. You can go into some of the old government buildings. You can stay in some of the old government buildings if your guests choose to stay at the Corinthia, which is one of our fave hotels. It's lovely. As you know, I have a few favourites, but I think that's allowed. And the Churchill War Rooms and so on. And there's a really wonderful feel. You'll see all of the some of the guards at the entrance to Downing Street, where the Prime Minister and Chancellor live, and so on. So it's a different feel, but you can really sense the history as well, which is great. And Covent Garden, you just have to wander around Covent Garden. It's so lovely. And if you want to give people a feel before they come, get them to watch My Fair Lady, because that's where she sells flowers. Now, I know it was a little while ago, and it's changed a bit since then, but do get them to watch it, because it's just lovely. There's such a buzz in Covent Garden, whether you are there first thing in the morning for coffee and pastries and sitting and watching the world go by, or getting a little bit dressed up and having a night out, or through the day just doing some good old shopping. It's I think it's a must for anybody who hasn't been to London before. Yes, that is Covent Garden, that in that picture. Thanks, Lucy, you'd already answered. And Jackie, I agree, one of my favourite musicals, and the traditional one is just great. So two very contrasting areas, but just lovely. And obviously on the Strand, you've got the Savoy and One Aldwych, which is just off the Strand. And you've got Simpsons and some of the theatres and so on. So it's so worth just walking around those areas, actually. And obviously with a guide, we would and we only have the very best guides, just to really bring it alive and find the hidden little cafes and so on. It's just lovely. So Trafalgar Square, and you may or may not be aware, but there are 4 plinths in Trafalgar Square with statues on, and there was huge debate about who should go on top of the 4th plinth. So what they've agreed is that they rotate different sculptures. I think they stay for 6 months each. They're there for quite a chunk of time, and there have been some quite extraordinary things, but it makes it's a fabulous contrast, because you've got Nelson's column, and obviously Lord Nelson and the lions and all that sort of thing. So it's a really lovely contrast. The War Rooms I've talked about, and the amazing Tower Bridge. I mean, it's just so fabulous, Tower Bridge. And there's if your clients would like to go to the Tower of London, we can do a rather lovely after hours tour for them, which just gives them the opportunity to have a proper look at those crown jewels, which are amazing. And they'll see them, and I'm sure many of you have done it. They will see them when they go through on a normal sort of ticketed visit during the day. But when they go out of hours, there is no one pushing them along and urging them to move on, so they can stand and gaze for as long as they want. And the other brilliant thing is that all the yeomen are there, all in their red uniforms and so on, happy to answer questions. And then they can go out onto the battlements, and that's the view that they see across Tower Bridge. So it's wonderful. And equally, out of hours tours of Churchill War Rooms as well are just really lovely, because you go behind the glass and you get sort of up close and personal of where Churchill was spent all those days and weeks during the war. Now, Piccadilly Circus is probably, I think it's the most dare I say it, American bit of London, because we have lots of advertising and all that sort of thing. And it always feels like it, I don't know who it was designed by, whether it was an American who designed it. But it's fabulous. It's bustling. Probably the closest, I guess, comparison would be Times Square if you haven't been to Piccadilly Circus. But it's where Regent Street, Oxford Street, Piccadilly, and Shaftesbury Avenue all meet at this central point. So Regent Street, you've got all of the beautiful shops and so on. Piccadilly, smaller and more sort of boutique shops, and the Millennium and a couple of hotels, and obviously the glorious Fortnum's. Got to have afternoon tea in Fortnum and Mason down on Piccadilly. Shaftesbury Avenue in the evening, because you're going up in towards Soho, where I mean that's real theatre land. So it is bustling with people having, you know, pre-theatre suppers and then going out for dinner and so on. So it's a lovely atmospheric place to be, which leads up into, as I say, Soho. And you know, Wardour Street, Frith Street, Greek Street, and so on, which are all really small streets, but with some of the best restaurants. But you do need to know where to go. So obviously we will help you with that, and we will talk about that when we do our food and drink session. But again, just walking around, it is the gay centre of London as well. So I have to say, some of those outfits are just worth. You've got to just sit outside and people watch for a few hours, because you will see absolutely everything. It's glorious. Oh, and the best Chinese restaurants in the world, obviously in Chinatown. So it really does have it all. Oh, and Carnaby Street, very, very famous back in the 60s. Where a lot of the newfangled fashion was appearing in Carnaby Street, and if you were into music and that whole 60s scene, then Carnaby Street was the place to be. I mean, it's still fabulous, not quite as trendy as I guess it was back then. I was a little bit young, but it's still got a rather fabulous vibe to it. And there's the Criterion on Shaftesbury Avenue, and the advertising of Piccadilly. Oh yes, and the photographic galleries in London. I mean, there's the Photographers Gallery in Soho, which does put on some superb exhibitions, but there are some lovely smaller ones as well. And my other half is a bit of a photographic whiz and fan, so we go to all sorts of lovely exhibitions in London. So we will share all of that if you have clients interested in that, which is just great. So in terms of sort of pulling it together, I think one of the challenges in London, or a bit like the countryside really, is knowing how much time you have and how much time you need to make the most of the Natural History Museum or the Churchill War Rooms or wherever it is that you're going. And that's where we can really help and come into our own. So we will create sort of themed itineraries for your guests, depending on what their areas of interest are, and really make sure that it's not just a fleeting visit. If they really want to immerse themselves, then that's what we'll create. So just to give you a little bit of a feel of some ideas, to have a really great literary themed experience, heading up to Bloomsbury, where the Bloomsbury set, Virginia Woolf and all of that crowd were, with some rather amazing street food at the Seven Dials Market, which is just magnificent. A private tour of the Mayfair art galleries, and then dinner in the British Library. Not a bad day in London all round, really. But to sit and have dinner surrounded by hundreds of years of history on all of those bookshelves is quite extraordinary. Now there are some things that I guess many would say you shouldn't miss. So um, being driven around London on a horse-drawn carriage is really rather lovely. But then equally, you could hire a convoy, a fleet of classic minis, or there are some sweet little, I'm trying desperately to think what they're called. But anyway, you can drive around in convoys in there. They're almost like little bubble cars. They're great fun. We've talked to you, and we will happily share again. Lord Maurice Fermoy, our great friend and yours, taking your clients around Kensington Palace and Horse Guards Parade. And he, as you know, he is so passionate about it. Different opportunities to explore the river. We had, it must have been 2 years ago, a lovely family coming over, and they had one day in London, and they really wanted to see the sights. And it happened to be the day where there was a huge cycling something or other going on in the city, and most of the main roads going through London were closed. And I could not disappoint this lovely family by going back to them saying, well, you could go into London, but you can't get anywhere because everything is closed. So we did it all by river, and it worked an absolute treat. They had a glorious time, and they climbed aboard HMS Belfast, and the son was very excited because he was convinced he'd been actually captaining HMS Belfast down the Thames. The fact that it didn't move didn't really matter. But we did it all by river, and it was great. It was absolutely brilliant. And they said added something to it, and we wouldn't have done it like that if it hadn't been for this big cycling event. Now there is the opportunity also to get a bit of action in, of everything from speeding around down by the Olympic site on a rib charter, climbing over the O2, eating in the sky, horse riding in Hyde Park. So there's some great active stuff that your clients can enjoy as well, and we can make it as challenging as they choose or not. So just let us know what they'd like to do. And then the kids can have a glorious time. There is so much to do, from Mary Poppins tour, private tours of Hamleys. Now that is an extraordinary experience, and you can go there in a tuk-tuk, as you can see, because there's one parked outside just there. They can make marmalade. If they're Paddington fans, they can make their own marmalade in Fortnum's, and have a good old Paddington tour. There's a huge amount. And actually, I will share with you, we are just putting together, with our a fantastic partner, a whole group of experiences specifically for children. So if you have families traveling and they maybe want to I don't know, a bit of adult parent time in an afternoon or something like that, we're creating these packages of fun things for the kids to do, obviously completely looked after with a fully qualified nanny or minder, but really doing some great fun things. So as soon as we've got that finalized, I will share that. We'll share that with you, but we're really excited. And as I said, I mean, there's the obvious in London, and it is great fun getting a black cab. It's a bit like getting one of the New York yellow cabs. I don't know what the novelty is, but it feels great. But obviously, doing a tour, that it's great having a chauffeur, because from a parking perspective and whatever, parking in London is horrendous. So having a chauffeur prevents all of that. But helicopters, boats, and horse-drawn carriages, they are all at your disposal to get around. Now again, I'm happy to spend some time in another session talking about some of the hotels. I'm sure a lot of you have your favorite hotels, and those that you know that you can trust and are beautiful. But there might be maybe a couple of new kids on the block that you'd like to investigate and like to know a little bit more about. So we'd be happy to share our thoughts and some of the information about some of the hotels. We work with all of these guys very closely, so would be happy to talk about them. But it's gorgeous. They're all lovely. I've got to say that, and here some of them are. And actually, I've just been on this morning. I co-hosted a webinar with the Four Seasons, talking about the group and incentive travel type opportunities with their 3 hotels. And 10 Trinity Square, which is their newest member of the UK Four Seasons family, that was used. It might look familiar if you're a James Bond fan, because that was used as MI6 headquarters in Spectre, I think it was. So your clients can embrace their inner James Bond, leave 10 Trinity, get onto the amazing Italian Riva boat, and go speeding down the Thames before they climb over the O2. You know, just a thought. But yeah, there are some really amazing hotels, and I think I read read recently that in 2021 there are going to be 5 new and so-called iconic hotels opening in London, which is really exciting because it says a huge amount about the city and how cosmopolitan it is and how it's growing even after the last year that we've had. So we will definitely keep you updated about the new hotels, because they are just great. So how's that? We've done London in half an hour. That's I think that must be a record. So please either let us know now in the chat, or drop us an email about what you would like to see more of. Obviously, we can go into detail about more of the itineraries and what's included and how much time you need and so on. But I just want to make sure that it's, thank you, Barbara. Oh, the markets. Yes, good call. Time for tea now. Absolutely. The markets, actually that would fit in really well with the food and drink theme, particularly Borough Market and so on. Thanks for that. We will include that. So yeah, just let us know if there's if there is anything, but we will share some more detail and so on when we share the recording of this tomorrow. Now, this has been couple more. Oh, great, Brian. That's good. And thank you, Elizabeth. That was wonderful. Now, all creatures great and small. Now, this takes us back to the 80s. I think the first series came out, but a rumor has it that All Creatures Great and Small is just a little bit popular in America, and the apparently a season has just one series has just finished, but there's more to come. So we are, due to popular demand, we are going to spend next week talking about the fabulous locations, and actually a bit like Bridgerton and Midsummer Murders and all of those, you don't have to be a fan of the program, because the places that we will take you are beautiful in their own right. It's just, if you do have a client who's a fan, then you'll be able to offer them something specific. So a huge thank you for joining us. It's been lovely to see you again, and I'm so grateful to you all for keep coming along and sharing your ideas and so on. And you have my word that we will carry on doing these until well, either we run out of things to talk about, or you stop turning up, whichever happens first. So thank you so much. Lovely to see you, and look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Bye bye.